The Forbidden Chamber. Ethan Carter adjusted the collar of his diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. The towering walls of the Zephyrian royal palace surrounded him, their smooth silver surfaces reflecting the artificial twilight of the alien world. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic mission: negotiate trade agreements, discuss peaceful relations, and most importantly, not break any rules. Yet here he was, standing in a dimly lit corridor, completely lost. The Zephyrian palace was a maze, filled with twisting halls and doors that all looked the same. His assigned guide had left him outside the grand hall for a moment, asking him to wait. But curiosity got the better of him. He had only wandered a little, just to explore. And then, he found this door. It was different. Unlike the other sleek metallic doors, this one had golden engravings, forming intricate swirling patterns that glowed faintly in the dim light. Something about it pulled him in. Maybe it was the soft hum in the air, or maybe it was the way his instincts screamed that this was off-limits. But humans were known for their reckless curiosity. Ethan glanced left and right. No one was around. His heart pounded as he placed his palm against the smooth surface. To his surprise, the door slid open without resistance. Inside, the air was warm, carrying a faint scent of something floral, yet alien. The chamber was nothing like he expected. Instead of a grand throne room or a high-tech control center, it looked soft. Golden silks draped the walls, casting a soft glow. Strange, bioluminescent flowers floated in small glass spheres, their petals shifting colors from deep blue to soft violet. The floor was layered with thick, luxurious cushions, and at the center was a grand, floating bed made of woven silver vines. And then he saw her. Princess Silva. She sat on the bed, cross-legged, her long crystalline silver hair cascading over her shoulders. Her violet-hued skin shimmered under the soft lighting, and her sharp feline-like eyes were closed, as if she was deep in thought or meditation. Ethan froze. He had walked in unannounced into the royal chambers of a Zephyrian princess. His mind raced with panic. This was bad, very bad. Zephyrian culture was extremely strict about privacy, especially when it came to the royal family. Entering such a place without permission was an unforgivable offense. If he was caught, the best outcome would be immediate expulsion from the planet. The worst? Well, he didn't want to think about that. Silva's golden eyes flickered open. For a moment, there was silence. Absolute stillness. Ethan could see his own reflection in her glowing pupils. He could feel the weight of her gaze, sharp and calculating. Her lips parted slightly in what he assumed was shock. Then something completely unexpected happened. She laughed. Not an offended, furious laugh. Not a sarcastic, mocking laugh. A genuine, melodic laugh, like the ringing of delicate chimes. Ethan blinked. His brain struggled to process what was happening. Of all the possible reactions, screaming, calling the guards, vaporizing him on the spot. He had not expected this. A human, in my private chambers, unannounced. She mused, amusement twinkling in her voice. Do you have a death wish? Ethan held up his hands. This is a misunderstanding. A big one. I got lost, and the door just opened. Her head tilted, curiosity replacing her initial shock. She gracefully slid off the floating bed, her movements fluid, like flowing water. Standing before him, she was taller than he expected, at least 6 feet, her presence commanding despite the amused glint in her eyes. Lost, she echoed. Fascinating. Ethan swallowed hard. Yeah, so, if you could just forget this happened, I'll just, leave. Before she could answer, a deep alarm tone echoed through the palace halls. His stomach dropped. The door behind him suddenly slammed shut. The soft, ambient lighting in the chamber shifted to red, casting an eerie glow over the princess's features. She raised an eyebrow. Oh dear, it seems the guards know you're here. Ethan paled. That's not good, is it? Princess Silva smiled, a hint of mischief in her expression. For you? Not at all. The sound of heavy footsteps approached rapidly from the other side of the door. Voices, angry, alarmed voices, shouted in the alien tongue. Ethan took a step back. Look, I swear, this was an accident. The princess waved a hand. Oh, I believe you. But that won't stop them from arresting you. His heart pounded. So, what do I do? Silva tapped a slender finger against her lips, pretending to think. Well, normally, I have you executed for this. Ethan choked. You're joking, right? The way she smirked made him very unsure. Then, in a surprisingly swift motion, she grabbed his wrist and pulled him behind a silk-draped curtain just as the chamber doors burst open. The royal guards stormed in, their golden armor gleaming under the dim red lighting. Their weapons, sleek, metallic staffs humming with crackling energy, were raised. One of the guards, an older Zephyrian with battle scars along his deep violet skin, bowed. Your Highness, an intruder was detected in your chamber. Silva let out a dramatic sigh. An intruder? In my chamber? She flicked her hand toward the empty room. Do you see an intruder here, Captain? The captain hesitated. But the alarms. Faulty systems, Silva said smoothly. Perhaps you should have them checked. The guards exchanged confused glances, unsure if they should question the princess. Ethan, meanwhile, held his breath behind the silk curtain, heart hammering against his ribs. If they found him now, he was dead. The unexpected reaction. Ethan held his breath. His heart pounded like a drum inside his chest, threatening to give away his position. The silk curtain was thin, too thin. If the guards took just one step closer, they'd see the outline of his form. Through the small gap in the curtain, he could see Princess Silva standing in the center of the room, her posture poised yet relaxed, as if the sudden intrusion of heavily armed guards didn't bother her at all. The Zephyrian captain, a towering figure in gold-plated armor, kept his glowing staff raised. His sharp eyes scanned the chamber, narrowing at every corner, searching for the supposed intruder. Ethan had seconds before he was found. He carefully shifted his weight, trying not to make a sound, but the soft rustle of fabric sent a chill down his spine. He was sure the captain had heard it. The guard's gaze snapped toward the silk drapery. Silva, however, acted fast. She let out an exaggerated sigh and crossed her arms. Captain, I appreciate your concern, but I think I'd know if an intruder were in my private chamber. The guard hesitated. Your Highness, the palace security system detected an unauthorized presence. We must be thorough. Silva arched an elegant eyebrow. Are you suggesting that I am lying? The tension in the room thickened instantly. The other guards stiffened, exchanging nervous glances. The captain swallowed hard, lowering his gaze. Questioning the princess was dangerous, even for a royal guard. Of course not, Your Highness, the captain said quickly. But the security system, Silva waved a dismissive hand, has been malfunctioning for months. You should look into that instead of barging into my chambers uninvited. Ethan couldn't believe it. She was covering for him. The guard hesitated but finally lowered his weapon. He took a step back and bowed. Understood, Princess. We shall recheck the security system. With a quick signal, the guards began retreating, though not before giving one last wary glance at the chamber. The captain turned and followed them out, but before the doors shut, he looked back at Silva and spoke in a low, serious tone. Forgive me, Your Highness, but if there was an intruder, and you are hiding him, it would be considered treason. Silva didn't even flinch. She merely smiled. A slow, knowing smile. I would never betray my people, Captain, she said smoothly. The guard gave a final nod, and the doors sealed shut behind them. Silence filled the chamber. Ethan didn't dare move. He wasn't sure if it was a trick, if maybe Silva would call the guards back the second he revealed himself. Maybe this was some elaborate Zephyrian game, where they pretend to spare you just so they can enjoy watching your expression when you realize you're still doomed. Then Silva sighed dramatically and yanked the curtain aside. Ethan stumbled forward, blinking at her. Thanks." She smirked. "That was the most ridiculous hiding attempt I've ever seen." Ethan straightened his jacket and muttered, "Well, excuse me for not being an expert in not getting executed on alien planets." Silva let out a soft chuckle before walking back to the center of the chamber. She gracefully perched herself on the edge of the floating bed, her long silver hair cascading like liquid crystal down her back. Ethan crossed his arms. "So, not that I'm ungrateful or anything, but why did you help me?" The princess studied him for a moment, her golden eyes flickering with amusement. "Because it was entertaining." Ethan blinked. "Excuse me." Silva leaned forward slightly, her chin resting on the back of her hand. "Zephyrian life is predictable, formal, rigid. No one in their right mind would dare step into my private chambers. And yet," she tilted her head, "here you are." Ethan scratched the back of his neck. "Right. So I almost got myself executed, and you saved me because you were bored." She shrugged. "More or less." Ethan exhaled sharply. "Fantastic." Silva's expression shifted slightly, her amusement giving way to curiosity. "Tell me, human, what do you think would have happened if I had handed you over to the guards?" Ethan hesitated. "A best-case scenario. I get kicked off the planet and never allowed back." Silva nodded. "And the worst?" He swallowed. "Let's not talk about that." She smiled faintly, but there was something mischievous in her gaze. "You truly have no idea, do you?" Ethan frowned. "No idea about what?" Silva tapped a slender finger against her lips, as if deciding whether to say more. Then, after a moment, she stood up and walked toward a large ornate bookshelf embedded into the wall. With a swift movement, she pulled out a small metallic tablet and tossed it to him. He barely caught it before it slipped through his fingers. "What's this?" She turned, her eyes glinting with something unreadable. "The reason why you should be dead right now." Ethan stared at her, then down at the tablet in his hands. The smooth, silver surface was embedded with ancient Zephyrian symbols, but as soon as his fingers touched it, the text shifted into perfect English. His eyes skimmed the first few lines, and then widened in shock. "Wait, hold on. This says that anyone who enters the royal chambers uninvited is either—" He paused, rereading the words as if hoping they'd change. "Executed or married." Silva smirked, surprised. Ethan's brain completely shut down. He read the line over and over, but it didn't make any sense. There's gotta be some mistake. That's not a real law, right? Silva chuckled. "It's an ancient law. Technically outdated, but still valid." She tapped her chin playfully. "So I suppose you have a choice, human. Be handed over to the guards for your punishment, or follow the old law and marry into royalty." Ethan almost choked. "Marry you." Silva smiled way too innocently. "Unless you prefer the alternative." Ethan turned to the tablet again, rereading the execution clause. "Yeah, no thanks," he muttered. Silva sighed dramatically. "What a shame. You don't sound thrilled." Ethan ran a hand down his face. This was not how his diplomatic mission was supposed to go. But before he could argue, the chamber's main console lit up with flashing red symbols. A voice echoed through the palace comms. "High alert. Unidentified forces detected near the palace gates." Silva's expression instantly shifted from amusement to deadly seriousness. Ethan tensed. "Let me guess. This isn't normal." The princess's gaze sharpened. "No, it's not." For the first time since he entered the room, Silva looked genuinely concerned. And that made Ethan's stomach twist. Something was very, very wrong. Arrested by the royal guard. Ethan's mind was still reeling from the revelation. Executed or married? What kind of insane law was that? His diplomatic mission had already gone sideways. But this was beyond ridiculous. He was standing in the private chamber of an alien princess, with a choice between becoming royal or being eliminated, and neither option sounded particularly appealing. But before he could even begin to argue, the palace alarm blared again. High alert. Unidentified forces detected near the palace gates. Princess Silva's playful smirk disappeared, replaced by something far more serious. Her golden eyes darkened as she strode toward the console embedded in the wall. The screen flickered to life, displaying a live security feed from outside the palace. Ethan stepped closer, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. A group of heavily armed Zephyrians, clad in dark crimson armor, had gathered near the palace gates. Unlike the royal guards, who wore golden uniforms, these warriors carried curved plasma blades and wore helmets designed to obscure their faces. Silva muttered a curse under her breath. Ethan shot her a glance. Friends of yours." She exhaled sharply. "Hardly." The palace comms crackled, and a deep voice rumbled through the speakers. "By order of the High Council, we demand the immediate detainment of the human intruder." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Okay. That's not good." Silva narrowed her eyes at the screen. "The High Council. Why would they?" She paused, her expression darkening. "Of course. Someone must have tipped them off." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Great, just great. I barely set foot in this place, and I'm already a wanted criminal." Silva turned to him, her gaze calculating. "They're not just here for you, Ethan. Something about this isn't right." He scoffed. "Oh yeah, because so far, everything's been super normal." Before Silva could reply, the doors to her chamber slammed open. A dozen golden armored palace guards stormed inside, their weapons raised. The captain from before led the charge, his expression unreadable as he took in the scene. Ethan instinctively raised his hands. "Okay, let's all just calm down." "Seize him," the captain ordered. Two guards lunged forward and grabbed Ethan by the arms. He struggled, but their grip was like steel. Silva stepped forward immediately. "Captain, stand down." The captain didn't move. "Your Highness, this is a direct order from the High Council. The human has violated royal protocol and must be taken into custody." Silva's expression turned cold. "I decide what happens in my chambers, not the High Council." The tension in the air was palpable. The guards didn't lower their weapons, and Ethan could feel how dangerously close things were to spiraling out of control. Then one of the guards shoved him forward. "Move," the soldier snapped. Ethan clenched his jaw. "Where exactly are we going?" The captain's expression remained stoic. "To the holding chambers, until the council decides your fate." Silva's voice hardened. "That's a mistake." The captain hesitated for the briefest moment before bowing. "With all due respect, Princess, this is beyond your authority." Silva didn't answer. Instead, she watched silently as Ethan was dragged away. The holding chambers. The palace prison wasn't what Ethan expected. Instead of cold, dark cells, the holding chambers were sterile and sleek, with glowing energy barriers instead of iron bars. He was dumped inside one of the containment units, the shimmering blue force field activating the moment the guard stepped back. Ethan groaned and rubbed his wrists. Well, that went well. Outside the cell, the captain stood, arms crossed. "You should be grateful, human. The High Council was prepared to execute you on sight." Ethan snorted. "Yeah, I'm feeling real grateful right now." The captain ignored him. "Your presence here is an insult to our traditions. You violated royal protocol, and for that, there will be consequences." Ethan sighed. "Okay, look, I swear, I didn't mean to barge into the princess's private chamber. It was an accident. I got lost." The captain's gaze didn't waver. "We shall see if the High Council believes that." With that, he turned and left, his boots echoing against the polished floors. Ethan exhaled and leaned back against the wall. "Well, Carter, you really outdid yourself this time." He needed a plan. Fast. Because something told him that if he waited for the High Council's decision, he wouldn't like the outcome. An unexpected visit. Hours passed. Ethan sat on the floor, arms resting on his knees, staring at the glowing barrier in front of him. He was starting to think no one was coming back when the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor. He looked up just as Princess Silva stepped into view. To his surprise, she was alone. No guards, no attendants. She approached the barrier and placed her hand against the glowing interface. A series of rooms flickered, and the force field fizzled out. Ethan blinked. "Wait, you can just turn this thing off." Silva smirked. "I am the princess." He stood up, rubbing his neck. "Not that I'm complaining. But what are you doing here?" Silva's expression darkened slightly. "You don't understand, Ethan. The High Council isn't interested in a fair trial." Ethan frowned. "Meaning?" She exhaled. "Meaning, they want you gone. Permanently." A chill ran down his spine. "So, what? They just decided I was guilty." Silva didn't answer. Ethan groaned. "I knew this was a bad idea." Silva crossed her arms. "Then you'll be happy to know I have a solution." Ethan gave her a wary look. "I'm almost afraid to ask." Silva's lips curled into a knowing smile. "You're going to escape." Ethan's eyes widened. Escape? From a high-security alien palace. He pointed to himself. "In case you forgot, I'm human. I don't exactly have space ninja skills." Silva chuckled. "Don't worry. You won't be alone." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Who's helping me?" Silva took a step closer. "I am." Ethan's jaw nearly dropped. "You're breaking me out." Silva's expression remained unreadable. "Let's just say I have my own reasons." Ethan hesitated. Everything about this screamed bad idea. But at the same time, he didn't really have a choice. Either trust Silva and escape, or stay and risk whatever the High Council had planned. Silva reached out a hand. "Well, human," she asked, a playful glint in her eyes. "Do you want to live?" Ethan exhaled sharply. Then, without another word, he took her hand. The secret proposal. Ethan had no idea what he had just agreed to. The moment his fingers brushed against Princess Silva's palm, a strange sensation rippled through his body, like static electricity dancing along his skin. He barely had time to process it before she pulled him forward, leading him out of the holding chamber and into the dimly lit palace corridors. His mind was still racing. Why was she helping him? She was a princess, royalty. She had no reason to put herself at risk for a random human diplomat who had accidentally stumbled into her chambers. Yet here she was, breaking him out of prison. Ethan shot her a sideways glance. "You mind telling me exactly what the plan is? Because right now, it feels like we're just walking." Silva didn't slow her pace. "We're not walking. We're avoiding detection." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Avoiding detection? We're in the middle of the most secure palace in the galaxy, and I'm pretty sure half the guards are looking for me." Silva smirked. "Which is why we're not heading for the exit." Ethan blinked. "Wait. What?" She abruptly stopped in front of a large, ornate door carved with shimmering golden symbols. The Zypherian language was unreadable to Ethan, but something about it felt significant. Silva placed her palm against the center of the door. A soft humming sound resonated through the air as the symbols glowed brighter. And then, without warning, the door swung open. Ethan stared. "Okay, seriously, where are we?" Silva stepped inside. "My personal archives." Ethan hesitated. "Right, because that makes sense." He followed her in, and the door sealed shut behind them. Unlike the rest of the palace, which was sleek and futuristic, this room felt ancient. The walls were lined with floating holographic scrolls, their glowing texts shifting as if alive. The air smelled faintly of incense and something floral. But what really caught Ethan's attention was the central platform. A single, massive book lay open on a pedestal, its pages etched with glowing symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Silva approached the pedestal and ran her fingers along the pages of the book. "This," she murmured, "is the Codex of Zephyrian law." Ethan frowned. "And why are we here instead of, running?" Silva turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Because I needed you to see this." Ethan stepped closer. His eyes scanned the text, but it was all alien symbols, until suddenly they shifted into perfect English. "By ancient decree, any outsider who enters the royal chambers of a Zephyrian princess without invitation shall be punished by exile, or shall be bound to the princess in sacred union." Ethan's heart stopped. He reread the words. Once, twice. Then he looked at Silva. "You've got to be kidding me." Silva crossed her arms. "I assure you, I'm not." Ethan let out a sharp laugh. "So let me get this straight. The High Council wants me dead because I accidentally walked into your room. But according to this outdated law, I have another option." Silva nodded. "Marriage." Ethan groaned. "Oh, fantastic. Just what I needed. A shotgun wedding with an alien princess." Silva smirked. "I fail to see the downside." Ethan threw up his hands. "For starters, I don't think your people would be thrilled about a human becoming a part of the royal family." Silva exhaled, her smirk fading. "You're right. That's why the High Council wants you gone." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "You keep saying that. But why? I mean, sure, I broke a rule, but why would they go this far?" Silva hesitated. For the first time since they met, she looked conflicted. Then she leaned in closer. "You don't know, do you?" she whispered. Ethan frowned. "Know what?" Silva tapped the codex, and the text shifted again. Another passage appeared, this one far older than the last. Ethan's eyes widened as he read. "It is forbidden for the royal house of Zephyria to form an alliance with humankind. Any attempt to unite a human and a Zephyrian royal shall be considered an act of treason." Ethan felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. "Wait, this isn't just about me trespassing, is it?" Silva shook her head. "No, it's about you being human." Ethan exhaled. "Great. Love that for me." Silva glanced toward the door, her golden eyes sharp. "The High Council fears you, Ethan. They fear what it would mean if a human were to stand beside the royal family." Ethan ran a hand down his face. "Okay, let's assume for a second that I don't want to get executed. What exactly are you suggesting?" Silva smiled. A slow, mischievous smile. "You marry me." Ethan choked. "Excuse me." Silva gestured toward the codex. "It's the only loophole. If we invoke the ancient law, they can't execute you." Ethan stared at her. "You do realize that's insane, right?" Silva shrugged. "Maybe. But it's the only way you survive." Ethan took a step back, running a hand through his hair. "I just came here for a diplomatic meeting. Now I'm about to become the galaxy's most controversial groom." Silva's smirk returned. "You make it sound so dramatic." Ethan threw up his hands. "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss the part where this isn't a political disaster?" Before Silva could respond, the palace alarm blared again. A voice crackled over the comms. "The human has escaped. Lock down all exits. He must not leave the palace." Ethan turned to Silva. "Guess that means time's up." Silva nodded. "Then make your choice, human." Ethan looked at the codex, then at Silva, then at the door, where the sounds of approaching footsteps grew louder. He exhaled sharply. "Oh, screw it." He turned to Silva. "Fine. Let's get married." Silva grinned. "Good choice." And with that, she grabbed his hand, just as the doors burst open. Escape or accept. The doors burst open with a deafening clang. Ethan barely had time to react before armed Zephyrian guards stormed into the chamber, their golden armor gleaming under the dim light. Energy weapons hummed to life, aimed directly at him. His grip on Princess Silva's hand tightened instinctively. "Well," Ethan muttered, "guess we don't have time for a wedding cake." Silva shot him an amused glance. Even as her posture shifted into something authoritative, she stepped forward, placing herself slightly in front of Ethan, a subtle but powerful move. The lead guard, a stern-faced warrior with a scar running down his deep violet skin, slammed his staff against the ground. The sound echoed through the chamber like a judge's gavel. "Princess," the guard said coldly, his gaze flicking between her and Ethan. "Step aside. The human is to be taken into High Council custody." Silva tilted her head. "By whose order?" The guard hesitated, but only for a second. "The decree has been issued by the Grand Chancellor himself." Ethan's stomach dropped. That wasn't just some random government official. The Grand Chancellor was the second most powerful person in the Zephyrian Empire, just beneath the ruling monarch. If he had personally issued Ethan's capture, that meant things were worse than he had thought. Silva's golden eyes narrowed. "And what punishment does the Chancellor intend to pass?" The guard's expression darkened. "Immediate execution." Ethan tensed. "Well, that's direct." Silva smiled coldly. "I see. Then I invoke the royal bonding law." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Even the guards seemed caught off guard. The lead guard's hand tightened around his weapon. "Princess, surely you jest." Silva lifted her chin. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Ethan exhaled. "I dunno. This all feels like a very elaborate prank." The guard hesitated, his sharp eyes searching Silva's expression for any sign of deception. But Silva was a born royal. Her face gave away nothing. "The royal bonding law." Another guard muttered in disbelief. "But that hasn't been invoked in over 1,000 years," Silva finished smoothly. "And yet, it is still in effect." The lead guard's jaw tightened. "The High Council will never accept this." Silva smirked. "They don't have a choice. The Codex is clear. Once the law is invoked, any attempt to harm the human would be considered an attack on the royal family itself." Ethan's eyes widened. "Wait, hold on. So now I'm technically royalty?" Silva turned to him, her golden gaze glinting with amusement. "Not yet, but you will be, assuming you accept." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. He still couldn't believe this was happening. 15 minutes ago, he was rotting in a palace prison. Now, he was being offered an ancient loophole-based marriage to an alien princess, all to avoid execution. This was, without question, the craziest diplomatic mission in human history. Ethan sighed. "Well, it's not like I have many options." He looked at Silva. "All right, Your Highness. I accept." Silva grinned. The guards, however, looked furious. "This is a mistake," the lead guard snapped. "You cannot seriously intend to go through with." Silva raised a hand. "I have made my decision. Stand down." The guards hesitated, but the royal family's word was law. Finally, the lead guard lowered his weapon. "Very well, Your Highness. But know this, the High Council will not be pleased." Silva's smile didn't waver. "They never are." The guards exchanged one last, reluctant glance before stepping back. Ethan exhaled. "Well, that was intense." Silva chuckled. "You have no idea." The midnight escape. Despite invoking the ancient law, Silva knew they weren't safe yet. The High Council would fight this decision. They would use every legal loophole they could find to challenge Ethan's new royal status. And if that didn't work, they might turn to more violent solutions. There was only one option: escape. Silva wasted no time. The moment the guards left, she activated the chamber's holo terminal, pulling up a map of the palace. Ethan leaned over her shoulder. "Please tell me there's a secret tunnel that conveniently leads to a getaway ship." Silva smirked. "Even better." She tapped the map, highlighting a restricted hangar bay beneath the palace. The royal family's private fleet. No one is allowed access except for direct members of the ruling house, which, thanks to our lovely engagement, now includes you. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "I really hope this marriage plan doesn't come with in-laws." Silva laughed. "Come on, human. Let's go." They moved quickly. The palace was on high alert, But Silva knew the blind spots in the security grid. With Ethan following close behind, she led him through hidden corridors, abandoned passageways, and dimly lit hallways that hadn't been used in centuries. Finally, they'd reached the hangar bay. Ethan's jaw dropped. There, sitting in the center of the chamber, was a Zephyrian royal cruiser, sleek, silver, and faster than anything he'd ever seen. He let out a low whistle. Now that's a getaway car. Silva grinned. Glad you approve. But before they could board, the alarms blared again. Attention. Unauthorized access detected in the royal hangar. Security forces en route. Ethan groaned. Of course, because nothing is ever easy. Silva rushed toward the ship's entrance. Come on. They sprinted up the ramp, and the ship's AI system flickered to life. Welcome, Princess Silva. Identity confirmed. The engines roared to life. Outside, the sounds of guards shouting orders filled the hangar. Energy weapons powered up, ready to fire. Ethan stumbled into the co-pilot's seat. You know how to fly this thing, right? Silva smirked. Hold on. She slammed the thrusters forward. The ship lurched violently as it blasted off the platform, barely dodging the incoming energy blasts from the guards below. Ethan gripped his seat. Next time, a little warning would be nice. Silva laughed as she angled the ship toward the stars. Behind them, the palace defenses activated, locking onto their ship. But before the turrets could fire, Silva's fingers danced over the controls, activating the ship's cloaking system. 1 second, they were a glowing target. The next, they had vanished into thin air. Ethan let out a slow breath. We made it. Silva turned to him, golden eyes glinting in the dim light of the cockpit. Not yet, she murmured. This is just the beginning. Ethan groaned. Oh, fantastic. And with that, their ship shot into hyperspace. The royal wedding or assassination. The royal cruiser shot through hyperspace, its sleek form cutting through the fabric of reality at impossible speeds. Inside the dimly lit cockpit, Ethan sat slumped in the co-pilot seat, still trying to process everything. Hours ago, he was just a human diplomat, lost in an alien palace. Now he was engaged to an alien princess, and on the run from the entire Zephyrian High Council. Ethan exhaled sharply. So, where exactly are we going? Princess Silva, seated in the pilot's chair, tapped the navigation console. The holographic display flickered, showing a distant red-hued planet orbiting a blue dwarf star. My family's hidden estate, she said. It's off the council's radar. No one will think to look for us there. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Why do I get the feeling this isn't the first time you've run away from something? Silva smirked but didn't answer. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. All right, let's say we make it there. Then what? The High Council won't just forget about this. Silva's golden eyes gleamed. No, they won't. Which is why we need to make this official. Ethan blinked. Make what official? Silva turned to him, her expression serious. The wedding. Ethan choked. You mean you weren't kidding about that? Silva leaned back in her chair. Of course not. The moment we finalize the bond, the council won't be able to touch you. You'll have full legal protection as my consort. Ethan exhaled. Right. Because getting married under galactic death threats is every kid's dream. Silva grinned. It does add a bit of excitement. Ethan rubbed his temples. And if I refuse? Silva shrugged. Then they'll execute you. Ethan threw up his hands. Well, when you put it that way. Before he could finish, the ship's warning alarms blared. Silva's head snapped toward the console. The holographic radar flashed red, showing an incoming fleet of Zephyrian warships. Ethan paled. Let me guess, that's not part of the wedding party. Silva cursed under her breath. The High Council must have tracked us. The comms crackled to life. A deep, commanding voice filled the cockpit. Attention, fugitive vessel. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Ethan's heart pounded. Silva's grip tightened on the controls. Not happening. The ships outside opened fire. A barrage of plasma blasts streaked through the void, barely missing their cruiser. The force of the near hit sent the ship into a violent spin. Ethan raised an eyebrow. I really hope this marriage plan doesn't come with in-laws. Silva laughed. Come on, human. Let's go. They moved quickly. The palace was on high alert, but Silva knew the blind spots in the security grid. With Ethan following close behind, she led him through hidden corridors, abandoned passageways, and dimly lit hallways that hadn't been used in centuries. Finally, they'd reached the hangar bay. Ethan's jaw dropped. There, sitting in the center of the chamber, was a Zephyrian royal cruiser, sleek, silver, and faster than anything he'd ever seen. He let out a low whistle. Now that's a getaway car. Silva grinned. Glad you approve. But before they could board, the alarms blared again. Attention. Unauthorized access detected in the royal hangar. Security forces en route. Ethan groaned. Of course, because nothing is ever easy. Silva rushed toward the ship's entrance. Come on. They sprinted up the ramp, and the ship's AI system flickered to life. Welcome, Princess Silva. Identity confirmed. The engines roared to life. Outside, the sounds of guards shouting orders filled the hangar. Energy weapons powered up, ready to fire. Ethan stumbled into the co-pilot's seat. You know how to fly this thing, right? Silva smirked. Hold on. She slammed the thrusters forward. The ship lurched violently as it blasted off the platform, barely dodging the incoming energy blasts from the guards below. Ethan gripped his seat. Next time, a little warning would be nice. Silva laughed as she angled the ship toward the stars. Behind them, the palace defenses activated, locking onto their ship. But before the turrets could fire, Silva's fingers danced over the controls, activating the ship's cloaking system. 1 second, they were a glowing target. The next, they had vanished into thin air. Ethan let out a slow breath. We made it. Silva turned to him, golden eyes glinting in the dim light of the cockpit. Not yet, she murmured. This is just the beginning. Ethan groaned. Oh, fantastic. And with that, their ship shot into hyperspace. The royal wedding or assassination. The royal cruiser shot through hyperspace, its sleek form cutting through the fabric of reality at impossible speeds. Inside the dimly lit cockpit, Ethan sat slumped in the co-pilot seat, still trying to process everything. Hours ago, he was just a human diplomat, lost in an alien palace. Now he was engaged to an alien princess, and on the run from the entire Zephyrian High Council. Ethan exhaled sharply. So, where exactly are we going? Princess Silva, seated in the pilot's chair, tapped the navigation console. The holographic display flickered, showing a distant red-hued planet orbiting a blue dwarf star. My family's hidden estate, she said. It's off the council's radar. No one will think to look for us there. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Why do I get the feeling this isn't the first time you've run away from something? Silva smirked but didn't answer. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. All right, let's say we make it there. Then what? The High Council won't just forget about this. Silva's golden eyes gleamed. No, they won't. Which is why we need to make this official. Ethan blinked. Make what official? Silva turned to him, her expression serious. The wedding. Ethan choked. You mean you weren't kidding about that? Silva leaned back in her chair. Of course not. The moment we finalize the bond, the council won't be able to touch you. You'll have full legal protection as my consort. Ethan exhaled. Right. Because getting married under galactic death threats is every kid's dream. Silva grinned. It does add a bit of excitement. Ethan rubbed his temples. And if I refuse? Silva shrugged. Then they'll execute you. Ethan threw up his hands. Well, when you put it that way. Before he could finish, the ship's warning alarms blared. Silva's head snapped toward the console. The holographic radar flashed red, showing an incoming fleet of Zypherian warships. Ethan paled. "Let me guess, that's not part of the wedding party." Silva cursed under her breath. "The High Council must have tracked us." The comms crackled to life. A deep, commanding voice filled the cockpit. "Attention, fugitive vessel. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded." Ethan's heart pounded. Silva's grip tightened on the controls. Not happening. The ships outside opened fire. A barrage of plasma blasts streaked through the void, barely missing their cruiser. The force of the near hit sent the ship into a violent spin. Ethan clung to his seat. "I really hope you have a plan." Silva's golden eyes flashed with determination. "I do." She slammed the thrusters forward, pushing the ship into an aggressive dive toward the planet's atmosphere. Ethan's stomach lurched as they plunged through the atmosphere, flames licking the ship's shields. The Zypherian warships followed closely, their weapons firing relentlessly. Silva gritted her teeth. "Hold on." She yanked the controls, pulling the ship into a sharp nosedive, heading straight for the dense, mountainous terrain below. The pursuing ships hesitated, unwilling to follow at such a dangerous angle. Ethan's breath caught. "Silva, we're about to crash." Silva smirked. "Not if I time this right." Just before impact, she engaged the reverse thrusters, the sudden force nearly tearing them apart. The ship skidded through a narrow canyon, barely avoiding the jagged rock formations. The warships above lost visual contact. Silva cut the engines, plunging them into darkness. For a long moment, silence. Then, Ethan let out a breath. "Holy. Okay. That was terrifying." Silva grinned. "You're welcome." Ethan turned to her. "Please tell me we're never doing that again." Silva just smirked. The comms remained dead silent. The enemy ships had lost them, at least for now. Silva leaned back in her chair. "Looks like we made it." Ethan let out a sharp laugh. "Fantastic. Now what?" Silva stood up. "Now, we prepare for the ceremony." Ethan groaned. "Of course we do." The midnight ceremony. The estate was unlike anything Ethan had seen before. Nestled deep within the mountains, the hidden Zypherian sanctuary was surrounded by glowing blue waterfalls, cascading into luminescent pools. The air hummed with energy, and the alien sky above was painted in a swirling aurora. Inside the temple, the air was thick with incense and whispered chants. The walls were lined with ancient Zypherian texts, glowing softly. A small group of elders in ceremonial robes stood at the center, waiting. Ethan swallowed hard. "Okay, not gonna lie. This is a little intimidating." Silva, now dressed in a flowing silver ceremonial robe, turned to him with a smirk. "You'll be fine." Ethan eyed her outfit. "You clean up nice." She smirked. "Flattery won't save you now, human." Ethan sighed. "Didn't think so." The elders motioned for them to step forward. Silva placed her hand over Ethan's. A soft golden glow spread between their palms, a sign of the bonding ritual beginning. One of the elders spoke in a deep, resonating voice. "Do you, Ethan Carter, accept the bond of union with Princess Silva of Zephyria, acknowledging the sacred ties between your fates?" Ethan inhaled sharply. His mind screamed ruin, but his heart told him there was no turning back now. He exhaled. "I do." The golden glow around their hands intensified, wrapping around their bodies like a living flame. Ethan felt a strange warmth seep into his skin, a sensation too alien to explain, yet somehow familiar. Then the elder turned to Silva. "Do you, Princess Silva, accept this bond, and with it, all consequences that may follow?" Silva smiled softly. "I do." A bright flash erupted between them, filling the chamber with a warm, ethereal light. Ethan gasped as memories flooded his mind. Silva's memories, moments of her childhood, her training, her struggles, her victories. When the light faded, Silva turned to him, her golden eyes now glowing faintly. "It's done." Ethan blinked. "Wait, that's it." Silva chuckled. "What were you expecting? A parade?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe a little warning before you downloaded your entire life into my brain." Silva grinned. "Welcome to Zephyrian bonding." Before Ethan could respond, the temple doors burst open. A royal messenger stormed in, his face pale. "Your Highness, the High Council has declared war. They demand your immediate surrender or face total annihilation." Ethan turned to Silva. "Please tell me this marriage comes with a military discount." Silva smirked. "Looks like we're going to war, husband." The final decision. The moment the royal messenger's words echoed through the sacred temple, everything changed. Ethan felt the weight of the universe settle on his shoulders. 1 second, he was an outsider, an Earth diplomat trying to avoid execution. Now he was royalty, bound by sacred law to an alien princess, and about to be thrown into a galactic war. The temple was silent. The Zephyrian elders stood motionless, their faces unreadable, as if waiting for the princess's reaction. But Silva didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her golden eyes blazing with determination. "The High Council has overstepped its authority," she declared. "They do not have the right to declare war against the royal house." The royal messenger hesitated. "Your Highness, they claim you have betrayed the Zephyrian bloodline." His gaze flickered toward Ethan. "They see your union with the human as a direct violation of ancient law." Ethan exhaled sharply. "I feel like people keep telling me that." Silva turned to him, her expression calm but fierce. "Let them try." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Okay, love the confidence, but just so I understand, what exactly happens if we don't surrender?" The messenger's face darkened. "The High Council will order the Royal Armada to seize this estate. If you resist, they will eradicate everything and everyone within 100 miles. Ethan's stomach twisted. Silva remained unshaken. "And if I surrender?" The messenger hesitated before answering, as if the words pained him. "They will demand you annul the bond. The human will be executed. And you will be forced into a political marriage with Lord Vale." Ethan blinked. Wait. Who the hell is Lord Vale?" Silva clenched her jaw. "A council-backed noble who's been trying to claim the throne for years." Her voice turned cold. "He's a tyrant. If the council puts him in power, Zephyria will fall into military rule." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "Right, and my best-case scenario in all this is that I die." "Fantastic." Silva turned fully toward him. "Ethan," her voice was quiet but firm, "listen to me." For the first time since this madness began, Ethan saw something in her golden eyes that he hadn't noticed before. Not just defiance, not just strategy. Something deeper, something personal. "I won't let them take you," she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. Silva turned back to the messenger. "Send this message to the High Council. If they want a war, they'll get one." The messenger stiffened. "Princess, go." Her voice was sharp, commanding. A queen's voice. The messenger hesitated only a moment longer before bowing his head. He turned and vanished through the temple doors. For a long moment, silence. Then Ethan let out a slow breath. "So, you just declared war." Silva turned to him, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Technically, they declared war. I just accepted the challenge." Ethan groaned. "Oh yeah, that makes it so much better." Silva chuckled. "Come with me." The War Council. They moved quickly. Deep within the sanctuary, a war chamber had been hidden for centuries. The moment they entered, holographic battle maps flickered to life, displaying the entire Zephyrian system. A handful of Silva's most trusted generals were already waiting. Some looked wary, others determined. One of them, a tall Zephyrian woman with a scar across her cheek, stepped forward. "Your Highness," she said, "I assume we're not here for pleasantries." Silva shook her head. The High Council is coming for us. The woman, General Kalis, let out a sharp breath. Then we have little time to prepare. She gestured to the holographic map. The Royal Armada has already mobilized. Their forces outnumber us 5-1. Ethan rubbed his temples. Great. We're dead. Kalis frowned at him. And who is this? Silva smirked. My consort. Kalis's eyes widened. You actually invoked the bonding law. Ethan raised a hand. Hi, yes, human. Apparently a walking political crisis. Kalis studied him for a long moment, then sighed. I hope you know what you're doing, princess. Silva's expression turned serious. I do. Kalis exhaled and turned back to the map. All right. Our forces are limited, but we have one advantage. She tapped the screen, zooming in on a remote sector of the system. The Council believes our only stronghold is here, but they don't know about the hidden fleet. Ethan frowned. Hidden fleet. Silva smiled. A fleet my father built in secret, in case the Council ever turned against us. Kalis nodded. If we can reach the fleet before the Armada arrives, we might stand a chance. Ethan let out a dry laugh. Awesome. So all we have to do is sneak past an entire war fleet, activate a hidden armada, and fight off an imminent planetary invasion. Silva grinned. You make it sound impossible. Ethan gave her a flat look. Because it is impossible. Kalis ignored him. We need to move fast. If the Council gets here before we launch, we won't make it out alive. Silva nodded. Then let's not waste time. Ethan sighed. Great. Another suicide mission. Silva smirked. At least this time, you're married into it. Ethan groaned. That does not make me feel better. The final battle begins. They moved quickly. Within the hour, Silva's forces mobilized. Soldiers and pilots raced to their ships, preparing for the upcoming battle. The sky above their sanctuary crackled with energy as hundreds of vessels powered up. Ethan found himself in the command deck of Silva's personal war cruiser. The reality of the situation was finally sinking in. He wasn't just a lost human diplomat anymore. He was standing beside a warrior princess, about to go head-to-head with one of the most powerful regimes in the galaxy. Silva stood beside him, arms crossed. You ready? Ethan let out a slow breath. Not even remotely. She smirked. Good. That means you'll survive. The ship's comms crackled. Enemy fleet detected, approaching fast. Ethan glanced at the display. Hundreds of enemy warships were emerging from hyperspace, forming a deadly blockade around the system. The final battle had begun. Silva placed a hand on his shoulder. Stay close to me, she murmured. No matter what happens. Ethan turned to her, his heart pounding. You think we actually have a shot at winning this? Silva's golden eyes burned with defiance. If we don't, she whispered, then we make sure they remember why they should have feared us. Ethan exhaled sharply. Then, for the first time, he smiled. All right, princess, let's give them hell. The battle alarms blared. The war had begun. The last stand. The battle alarms blared as the enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace, hundreds of warships forming a deadly blockade above the sanctuary planet. Ethan stood beside Princess Silva on the command deck of her personal war cruiser, watching the screens flicker with endless red markers. Enemy vessels preparing to strike. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the first plasma volley was fired. The sky erupted into chaos. Shields up, Silva commanded, her voice unwavering. The warship's defense barriers shimmered as they absorbed the first wave of attacks. The rest of their fleet, though smaller, moved tactically, dodging through asteroid fields and using planetary gravity wells to outmaneuver the larger enemy ships. Ethan gripped the console as the ship shook violently. I assume running isn't an option. Silva smirked. Not unless you want to live the rest of your life as a fugitive. Ethan exhaled sharply. All right. Then what's the plan? Silva's golden eyes blazed with intensity. We break their line, get to the hidden armada, and take the fight to the High Council directly. Ethan let out a hollow laugh. Oh yeah, totally easy. Silva leaned in, her voice lowering. Do you trust me, Ethan? Ethan hesitated. The past 24 hours had been a blur of insanity, from trespassing in a forbidden chamber, to a forced royal engagement, to being hunted by an entire alien government. And yet, as he looked into Silva's fierce golden eyes, he realized something. He did trust her. Against all odds, against all logic, he believed in her. Ethan took a deep breath and nodded. Yeah, I do. Silva's lips curled into a smirk. Good. She turned back to the crew. All ships, follow my lead. We end this tonight. The fleet roared forward, pushing through the enemy blockade like a knife through fabric. The final battle had begun. The betrayal. The battle raged for hours. Ships were torn apart, debris littered the void, and explosions painted the sky with fire. But Silva's forces fought with a ferocity the High Council hadn't expected. Ethan, now manning the co-pilot controls, worked alongside Silva, calling out enemy positions and adjusting their ship shields. He wasn't a soldier, but he was a fast learner. Then, just as their fleet reached the hidden armada, disaster struck. A transmission came through, crackling with static. This is General Callis. I repeat, our reinforcements have been compromised. We have a traitor in our ranks. Silva's blood ran cold. Who? The transmission fizzled, and then a new voice came through. That would be me. The sound of that voice froze the entire bridge. Ethan turned, confusion etched on his face. Who the hell? Silva's fists clenched. She knew that voice. The screen flickered, and Lord Vale appeared. His serpentine eyes gleamed with cruel amusement, his deep crimson robes embroidered with the insignia of the High Council. Behind him, dozens of warships, ships that should have been loyal to Silva, had turned against them. Silva's breath sharpened. You. Vale smiled. Oh, Princess, you didn't really think this pathetic rebellion would succeed, did you? Ethan scowled. Oh, I hate this guy already. Vale ignored him, stepping forward. Surrender now, Silva. Annul this ridiculous bond and return to your rightful place. If you do, I will spare the human. Silva's grip on the console tightened. Ethan frowned. Silva, he's lying. She nodded. I know. Vale tilted his head. Come now, Princess. I am offering mercy. A chance to save your people. Silva's golden eyes blazed. Zephyrians do not surrender. Vale sighed dramatically. How unfortunate. The screen went black. And then, an EMP blast detonated. The ship lurched violently, lights flickering as power systems shut down. The entire fleet was crippled in an instant. Ethan's stomach dropped. Oh, that's not good. Silva gritted her teeth. They disabled our ships, but not our will. She turned, her voice sharper than steel. Prepare for ground combat. The final decision. The battle moved to the surface. Ethan and Silva, alongside the remaining forces, descended onto the sanctuary world, where Vale's troops had already begun their invasion. The final confrontation had begun. Amid the chaos, Ethan found himself fighting for his life, blasting enemy soldiers, dodging plasma fire, and using every survival instinct he had. He wasn't a warrior, but he was human. And humans, they didn't go down easily. Then, at the heart of the battlefield, Silva and Vale finally came face to face. Vale sneered. You should have taken my offer. Silva smirked. I'd rather die than stand beside a coward. Vale lunged. Their blades clashed, sparks flying as they dueled under the burning sky. Ethan, still fighting off enemy soldiers, saw the battle unfold, and a horrifying realization hit him. Vale was winning. Silva was fast, but Vale had experience. He outmaneuvered her, striking with brutal precision. And then, Val's blade struck true. Silva stumbled back, wounded. Ethan's heart stopped. Something primal ignited in him. He rushed forward. Vale turned, laughing. "Ah, the human steps in." He raised his blade. "You are nothing." Bang! The sound of a gunshot echoed through the battlefield. Val's eyes widened. He looked down. A smoking hole was in his chest. Ethan lowered his plasma pistol, hand steady. "I'm something now, aren't I?" Vale collapsed. The battle ended. A new era. With Vale dead, the High Council's grip shattered. The rebellion had won. Ethan rushed to Silva, catching her before she fell. "Hey, stay with me." Silva, wounded but alive, smirked. "You shot him." Ethan grinned. "Yeah, well, he was annoying." She laughed weakly. "You saved me." Ethan met her gaze. "You saved me first." A moment passed. Then, she kissed him. The bond between them glowed brighter, sealing their connection in ways deeper than words or laws. Zephyria would never be the same. And neither would they. The human consort. Months later, Ethan stood on the royal balcony, overlooking the vast cities of a rebuilt Zephyria. He was no longer just an outsider. He was Ethan Carter, first human consort of the Zephyrian throne. Silva stood beside him. "Regrets?" Ethan chuckled. "Not a single one." She smiled. And together, they ruled. The end.